Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive into the world of daycare
Oh,
workers.
interesting.
Yeah, you guys sent in some excerpts from 30 daycare worker interview questions and answers. It's by Interview Prep.
Okay.
And I had no idea. It was fascinating. I always thought it was just about loving kids, but there's so much more to it.
Right.
Like it's a real profession with a lot of depth.
Absolutely.
So what's the first thing that stood out to you when you were looking through this material?
Well, the thing that I noticed right away is that the guide really emphasizes the need for like a diverse skill set.
Uh-huh.
It's not enough to just enjoy being around children.
Oh, so it's not just
Yeah.
about being like a kid person or whatever.
Right. Like patience and creativity, communication, conflict resolution, adaptability. These are all just as important as passion.
Okay, I get that those would be valuable in any job, really, but how do those skills like actually play out in a daycare setting?
So think about adaptability.
Okay.
You have to transition a toddler from playtime to lunchtime.
Oh, yeah.
Their concept of time is still developing.
Uh-huh.
So a sudden change can be jarring for them.
Oh, I can imagine.
So the guide suggests using like visual cues, maybe a picture schedule, and offering choices like, do you want to wash your hands first or choose your cup?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, empower them a little bit.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and it makes you realize how differently you might approach, say, toddlers versus preschoolers.
Right.
Totally different needs and ways of learning. Absolutely. The guide specifically compares working with toddlers to working with preschoolers.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, toddlers are those little whirlwinds of energy.
Oh, yeah.
They need a different approach than preschoolers who are starting to grasp more complex concepts.
So you have to be ready for anything.
Oh, totally.
Now, conflict resolution.
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine how often that comes up in a daycare setting.
Oh, all the time.
I mean, just watching kids at the park sometimes arguing over a toy truck.
It's like a constant negotiation.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure in a daycare it's amplified.
Oh, for sure.
So how does the guide say that a daycare worker should handle those situations?
Well, the key is ensuring safety first,
Okay, that makes sense.
then understanding each child's perspective, helping them to communicate their feelings, and guiding them towards a resolution.
Wow. So daycare workers are basically like tiny diplomats,
Right.
trained in the art of mediating playground disputes.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And what's interesting is the guide points out that these conflict resolution skills are super valuable for parents, too.
Oh, I bet.
It's all about teaching kids how to navigate disagreements in a healthy way.
Right. Those are skills that will serve them well for their whole lives.
For sure.
Speaking of valuable skills, I'm curious about how daycare workers approach engaging young minds.
Yeah.
Is it all about making learning fun, like those catchy educational songs?
You're on the right track.
Okay.
The guide emphasizes tailoring activities to individual interests and incorporating hands-on elements.
Okay.
For instance, a counting lesson could become a fishing game. With numbered paper fish or learning colors could involve a scavenger hunt.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, turn learning into an adventure.
That's so smart.
It is.
I've heard of these educational philosophies like Montessori and Reggio Emilia,
Yeah.
but I've never fully understood how they actually work in a daycare.
So the guide actually explains how these philosophies shape the environment and the activities.
Oh, okay.
A Montessori classroom, for example, might have a low shelf with accessible materials
Okay.
to encourage self-directed exploration puzzles with different levels of difficulty, that kind of thing.
So it's all about encouraging independence and letting kids learn at their own pace.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And a Reggio Emilia classroom might use natural materials,
Yeah.
like wood and clay, to encourage creativity and exploration.
So they're both focused on letting the kids kind of lead the way.
In a way, yeah, it's about creating environments that nurture their curiosity.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
But I imagine it must be a challenge to balance those individual approaches with the needs of a whole group of kids.
Right. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
The guide gives an example of how daycare workers do this. They create structured routines
Okay.
with time for both group activities and one-on-one interactions.
So it's like a carefully planned dance between those two things.
It is, and it makes me think of like an air traffic controller,
Yeah.
managing that constant flow of needs and activities.
Right. It's a very dynamic environment.
Definitely.
Okay, let's talk about discipline.
Go ahead.
This is something I've always wondered about. How do daycare workers set boundaries and encourage good behavior without resorting to punishment?
Yeah. Well, the guide emphasizes positive reinforcement and clear communication.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on punishment, it's about setting expectations, praising good behavior and redirecting negative actions.
So it's more about guiding them towards positive choices.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And it aligns with current research on child development, too.
Oh, that makes sense.
And, of course, consistent communication with parents is key.
Right. So everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. It creates that unified front.
Okay, now for the serious stuff emergencies.
Yeah, those definitely happen.
And I'm sure daycare workers are well trained to handle those situations.
Absolutely. The guide stresses the importance of staying calm, following established protocols, and prioritizing safety.
Okay.
It talks about assessing the situation, quickly administering first aid if needed, and knowing when to call for help.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but they're prepared.
Well, that's reassuring for parents to know.
Definitely.
Before we move on, I want to touch on communication with parents.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the job, right?
Huge.
Mm.
The guide stresses the importance of consistent and clear communication with parents,
Okay.
providing regular updates on the child's progress, addressing concerns promptly, and collaborating on solutions.
So it's a real partnership between parents and the daycare.
It is open communication is so important
It really is.
for everyone involved.
Well, this has been eye-opening.
I know, right?
It's amazing how much more goes into being a daycare worker than I ever realized.
It's so much more than just childcare.
It's about fostering growth, nurturing curiosity,
Absolutely.
and building those essential skills that kids will need throughout their lives.
A really important job.
It is, and I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface.
Me too.
We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the world of daycare workers with even more insights from these interview questions and answers.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned.
See you then.
Okay, we're back, and I'm still thinking about all the stuff we talked about last time.
Yeah, me too.
It's really incredible how much goes into being a daycare worker.
Right. It's so much more than people realize.
Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me from this interview guide
Yeah.
is that daycare workers are expected to keep learning and developing their skills.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a one and done kind of job.
Right, it's like being a doctor or a lawyer or something.
Exactly.
There's always new research, new techniques.
Right.
They're constantly evolving.
Yeah, the guide mentions attending workshops, conferences, webinars,
Wow.
staying informed through journals, online forums.
They're really dedicated.
They are. It's impressive.
So it's like they're professional educators shaping those little minds.
They really are. Those early years are so crucial.
Speaking of engaging young minds,
Yeah.
I loved that example in the guide about turning a counting lesson into a fishing game.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
What other creative approaches did you find?
Well, there's one about using a matching game to teach colors and shapes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so the kids would search the room for objects that match the color and shape on their card.
Oh, like a scavenger hunt.
Exactly.
Kids love those.
They do.
It's a great way to make learning fun.
It is.
But, not everything about daycare is fun and games,
Right.
like mealtime.
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine the chaos.
It can be a challenge, for sure.
So does the guide give any advice on how to handle mealtimes?
It does. It talks about the importance of gathering information from parents about each child's dietary requirements, allergies, preferences.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so you can plan ahead, have alternatives on hand,
Okay.
and communicate clearly with both the children and their parents.
So it's not just about preventing food fights.
Right.
It's about making sure every child feels heard and respected.
Exactly. And that their needs are met.
No, I'm sure every job has its challenging moments.
Oh, yeah.
And this guide actually has a question about that.
Oh, yeah. The one about a difficult situation you faced at a previous job?
Yeah, and how you resolved it.
The classic behavioral interview question.
Right. What kind of example does the guide use?
It talks about a child who was having a hard time adjusting to the daycare environment, crying a lot, refusing to participate.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah. So the daycare worker in the example worked patiently with the child,
Okay.
collaborated with the parents
Mhm.
to create a plan, a gradual adjustment plan, offered extra comfort and support.
So it's all about patience, empathy, and building that trust.
It is. That's so important.
Yeah, especially with little ones.
For sure.
We talked about adapting to different needs.
Yeah.
And there's a section in the guide about helping kids develop social skills and build friendships.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
I remember struggling to make friends when I was little.
Yeah. It's not always easy.
I wish I had someone guiding me through that.
It's a crucial part of development, for sure.
So what kind of techniques does the guide mention?
It talks about creating opportunities for group activities,
Okay.
cooperative play, encouraging interaction.
So instead of just letting them play on their own,
Right.
you're actually setting up situations where they have to communicate and work together.
Exactly. And modeling positive social behaviors.
Okay.
And, guiding them through conflict resolution when those disagreements inevitably arise.
So they're learning by watching the adults.
They are. They pick up on everything.
Okay, now let's talk about emergencies.
Okay, the big one.
Every parent's worst nightmare.
It is, but daycare workers are prepared.
Well, that's good to know.
The guide emphasizes staying calm, following protocols, and prioritizing safety above all else.
So they're like first responders?
In a way, yeah.
They have to assess the situation quickly,
Right.
administer first aid if needed,
Uh-huh.
and know when to call for help.
Exactly.
Okay, moving on. I'm curious about how daycare workers assess a child's developmental progress.
Okay.
Is it all about like formal evaluations or is there more to it?
The guide actually talks about both formal and informal assessments.
Okay,
Formal assessments might involve checklists or standardized tests,
makes sense.
but informal observations are just as important.
Oh, I bet.
Paying attention to their behavior, their interactions, their overall development.
So it's about noticing those subtle cues.
It is those little things that might indicate a child needs extra support.
And then I imagine you would communicate those observations to the parents.
Absolutely. Open communication with parents is key.
Right, you're working together as a team.
Exactly, to support that child's development.
Okay, let's talk about how daycare workers encourage kids to express their feelings.
Oh, that's so important.
Because kids don't always know how to do that in a healthy way.
Right.
So how do they help them?
The guide emphasizes active listening,
Okay.
validating their emotions without judgment,
Uh-huh.
and creating opportunities for expression through different activities.
So it's about creating that safe space.
It is where they can explore and understand their feelings.
Okay, now what about transitions?
Those can be tough.
Especially for little kids.
Right. Going from one activity to another can be a meltdown waiting to happen.
So how do daycare workers make those transitions smoother?
Well, the guide suggests using visual and auditory cues,
Okay.
like a timer or a song, to signal that it's time to move on.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it helps to prepare them for the change.
So they're not caught off guard.
Right. And the guide also mentions the importance of clear instructions
Oh, okay.
and encouraging active participation.
Like,
Like assigning tasks during cleanup time.
oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it makes it feel less like a chore.
And more like a game.
Exactly.
Teamwork is so important in any workplace,
It is.
but especially in a daycare, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure.
So what does the guide say about collaborating with colleagues?
It stresses the importance of clear communication,
Okay.
shared goals, and a willingness to support each other.
Like being on the same team.
Exactly.
Now, there are some responsibilities that are a little more sensitive,
Right.
like administering medication.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
So daycare workers have to be properly trained in that.
They do. The guide talks about understanding dosage instructions,
Uh-huh.
recognizing potential side effects,
Okay.
maintaining accurate records.
Wow. It's like they're nurses, too.
It is a lot of responsibility.
And then there's potty training.
Oh, yeah, that could be an adventure.
I bet.
But the guide emphasizes a patient and understanding approach,
Okay.
working closely with parents to create a consistent routine
Mhm.
and using positive reinforcement.
So it's all about making it a positive experience.
It is celebrating those small victories.
And of course, accidents happen.
Oh, they do.
But it's important to handle those with sensitivity.
Definitely.
Now, physical activity is so important for kids.
It's essential for their development.
So how do daycare workers make sure the kids are getting enough exercise?
The guide talks about allocating specific time slots for both indoor and outdoor activities.
Sure.
Outdoor play whenever possible.
Makes sense.
But of course, weather doesn't always cooperate.
Right. What happens when it rains or snows?
They bring the activity indoors.
Okay.
Dance parties, obstacle
Mhm.
courses, yoga sessions.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Get creative.
Gotta keep those little bodies moving.
Exactly.
Now, what about personal hygiene?
Okay.
Hand washing, brushing teeth, all that stuff.
Right. Those are important habits to learn.
But how do you teach them to little kids who don't really get why it's important?
The guide suggests using age-appropriate methods, making it fun and engaging.
Like what?
Oh, for toddlers, it might be singing silly hand-washing songs.
Oh.
Or reading stories about friendly germs.
Okay.
For older kids, you might explain the importance of hygiene in terms they can understand,
Okay.
like connecting it to staying healthy and preventing the spread of germs.
So you're appealing to their logic.
In a way, yeah,
That's really interesting.
it is.
And daycare isn't all about routines and everyday activities.
Right.
There are also those special events, field trips.
The guide mentions planning things like family fun days.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, to strengthen the community bonds
Right.
and coordinating trips to museums, zoos, all sorts of enriching places.
Wow. So they're creating those memorable experiences.
They are. It's not just about being in the daycare center.
Right, expanding their world.
Exactly.
But that must require some serious time management skills.
Oh, definitely. The guide highlights the importance of creating a daily schedule,
Okay.
prioritizing tasks, remaining flexible.
Right, because things don't always go according to plan,
Never do.
especially with little kids.
So true.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah?
I have to ask about that last question in the guide.
Okay.
Why do you think you'd be a good fit for this daycare center?
Oh, yeah. The classic closing question.
Right, it's the applicant's chance to really shine.
The guide emphasizes highlighting relevant skills and experience,
Okay.
demonstrating enthusiasm for working with children,
Mm-hmm.
expressing confidence in their ability to contribute.
So it's like a final opportunity to make a lasting impression.
It is to really sell themselves.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
And I'm starting to realize that being a daycare worker is not just a job.
It's a calling.
It really is. It requires a unique set of skills,
Uh-huh.
a lot of patience, and a genuine love for children.
It does, and a lot of coffee.
Probably.
We'll be back soon to finish up this deep dive and explore some final takeaways.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. Wow, it's amazing how much we've learned
I know, right?
just from these interview questions.
It's really fascinating.
I have a whole new appreciation for daycare workers.
Me too?
It's so much more than just watching kids.
It is. It's about nurturing their growth,
Yeah, encouraging exploration.
creating a foundation for learning.
It's like they're shaping young minds.
Exactly, impacting lives in huge ways.
So what's your biggest takeaway from all this?
I think it's that daycare workers are like the unsung heroes of early childhood development.
Yeah.
They wear so many hats.
I know, right? Educator, diplomat, nerd,
Sure.
artist, cheerleader.
And coffee maker.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But seriously, the skills they develop are valuable in any field.
That's true. Patience, communication, problem solving.
It's all transferable.
Yeah. And this whole deep dive has made me realize the importance of collaboration, especially between parents and daycare workers.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
essential for a child's development.
Yeah, it takes a village.
It really does.
And we can't forget the dedication these workers show to professional development.
Right. Always learning, growing.
It's inspiring.
It is.
Yeah.
They really care about what they do.
So after all this, I think we should all try to see the children in our lives with fresh eyes.
I agree.
Think about their needs,
How they learn best.
how we can help them grow.
Create those nurturing environments.
Yeah, because those early experiences really shape who they become.
They do. It's powerful stuff.
Well, I think we've successfully completed our deep dive.
I think so too.
It's been insightful and eye-opening.
And inspiring.
Yeah, definitely inspiring.
So the next time you see a daycare worker,
Yeah,
give them a smile, a thank you.
they deserve it.
They really do. They're the ones building the future.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring the world with curiosity and an open mind.